Our You Decide coverage continues ahead of South Carolina's June 11th primary, and right now our focus is on the race for Greenville County Sheriff. In the Republican primary, Hobart Lewis is running for re-election, and his challenger is Mike Fortner. And joining us now for his race for re-election is Sheriff Hobart Lewis. So, Sheriff, thank you so much for taking some time with us. First and foremost here, why should the people of Greenville County re-elect you?
Well, I'm in a unique situation, Justin, because I've been in office for 4 years, so people have a record to look at, and I think we have a great record in the last 4 years serving as a sheriff here in Greenville County. Honestly, I don't think there's a better choice. I think we're heading in the right direction. We've done a lot of positive things. Crime is down. Our solvability rates are through the roof when you compare them nationwide to anybody, and that's simply because of the culture that was created at the Sheriff's Office for the last 4 years. Everybody is moving, pulling in the same direction and serving the community well, building relationships between law enforcement and the community, and I certainly would ask people to give me another 4 years and let us continue on.
You talk about the solvability. According to SLED, we only have the 2022 data, but those numbers are good in Greenville County. To your credit, 96% clearance rates. That means when it comes to murders, you have either identified the suspect, there's made an arrest, or a conviction. 96% back in 2022, according to SLED, 89% for drug offenses. But you're saying those numbers are even higher.
They're 100% for 2 years, 22 and 23 actually. And it takes a while to get that information in SLED to enter it into their system if you're looking at the Uniform Crime Reporting System, which is where that comes from.
Okay.
But yeah, one case that was open in 22, we recently made an arrest for. I think nationwide, I would put that record up against anybody that has a community our size and a department our size with more than 720 employees. And the work they do is just tremendous. Missing persons, you know, we've changed how we respond to those. We have found, located 100% of our missing persons, and we have a couple of hundred a year that people may not realize, whether runaways or seniors or whatever the case may be. Locating 100% of those for 3 years, those are huge numbers for this community.
How do you plan to stay ahead of that and making sure those numbers stay that high with all the growth happening in Greenville County?
I think the biggest thing is relationships that we built here in Greenville County between law enforcement and the community. We cannot solve crimes without the community's help. And that comes from crime prevention and getting information out about car break-ins and neighborhoods and not leaving your garage remote in the car and not leaving your car unlocked to reduce those numbers and making ourselves vulnerable for those type of crimes. When you talk about homicides, missing persons, violent crimes of any kind, obviously having investigators who have the equipment they need to go out and work these things right away. We have now, which we've never had before, but in the past 3 years, investigator on staff 24 hours a day to respond to anything that happens in Greenville. Used to, if it's 2 o'clock in the morning, you would have to call somebody and get them out there. These people are very specifically trained and checking into and investigating these type of crimes. So having them available to go out and start that process right away and preserve evidence is huge. Going forward, obviously we would like to see our homicide numbers continue to come down, which they did from last year. They were at 17. The year before, I think we were 24, 25. That's going to come to educating the community, really gearing in and focusing on our young people in schools. We now have SROs, deputies, in every elementary school in Greenville County, which is a big deal. So building those relationships with our young people, getting them away from gang activity and violent acts itself, and showing them a more positive direction, I think will pay huge dividends.
There's something specific I wanted to ask about. We ran a report on allegations that there may be gaps in law enforcement training when it comes to deputies who encounter individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Sure. Those came after an encounter deputies had with a man named Kenneth Langford back in 2020. But we know in 2021, your office launched Operation Safe Outcomes.
Correct.
Which is a voluntary registry that people can sign up for to alert the sheriff's office if they or a loved one has autism, Down syndrome, Alzheimer's, or if they're deaf or blind. So at that time, when you launched it, you said, I hope the community realizes how hard we're working to find solutions.
Absolutely.
3 years later, where are those efforts now?
I think they're great. If you look at Operation Safe Outcomes and how many people are participating, that number continues to grow. And I will say, one unique thing right now about the Greenville County Sheriff's Office, that Operation Safe Outcomes was developed by Captain Dallas Gladson, who works at the Sheriff's Office, saw a need, and came up with that plan. And came to us and said, look, this is something that's important, it's something I want to do. Those are where great ideas come from. I certainly don't deserve the credit for those things. The men and women at the Sheriff's Office are the ones doing the work every day. They're the ones leaving their families to go out here and protect us. They do a tremendous job. And as people continue to find out about safe outcomes and enter that information, that's part of why we're 100% successful on finding missing people. If you have someone in your home who suffers from dementia or Alzheimer's, and we got a picture of them right away and we got a description, those people usually do the same thing over and over. They have a bit of a routine, whether it's a walking route or whatever the case may be. We can access that information instantly. Okay. And every deputy in the county has it, and we can put resources there to find them. The same goes for those folks that may suffer from some type of mental issue. With other training that deputies learn how to de-escalate those situations through NAMI and some of those. So those numbers, I think, have come way down, and we certainly, obviously, if it's bad, it makes the news. If it's good, you know, it typically doesn't. But for all the issues we have and all the calls for service, about 500,000 a year, you know, the ones you really see on the news that are not so desirable for the outcome are very few, and we're very pleased and thank the deputies for their hard work for that.
And for anyone at home may be curious, again, that is called Operation Safe Outcomes, correct?
Yes,
okay.
You can go to gcso.org. They can go to our website and look for Operation Safe Outcomes, click on that tab and enter their information, download a picture. There's all kind of details you can put in there, and it's been very successful.
Real quickly here, what is the #1 lesson you've learned your first term as sheriff?
Man, I've had a few. You know, I think recognizing how important it is to maintain this community. Greenville's a very special place. And unless you're from somewhere else or travel a lot, you may not really recognize it. But our relationship between the citizens and the men and women who serve this community is so special and so strong. It's certainly a blessing, really, to have an opportunity to be the sheriff of Greenville County. But you know, things do happen, bad things happen. We have had tough situations to handle when we first came into office. COVID, obviously the first day, March 16th, then dealing with some protests and those issues, in the line of duty death of a sergeant that worked for the sheriff's office. You know, I think patience and is probably one of the biggest issues, and to be accessible to people and be out in the community as we promised when we ran, and I've certainly tried to uphold every promise that we made to the community and checked that list off and kept a flyer in my office from when I ran in 2020 and made sure we went down the list and we stayed on track to do those things. But you know, relationships is so vital, and I think that's probably our biggest attribute.
Sheriff Lewis, thank you so much.
Thank you. Good to see you.